A little bit about me, what I do, my secret sauce is the ability to help people to be able to tell their stories. A lot of times our brains operate like a blender with its lid off. I actually was searching that image recently, so it's in the back of my head now, and trying to get that into a cohesive keynote. And that's what I love doing. That's what my passion is right now. I love helping people be able to spread their voice, build their tribes, go out and do absolutely amazing things.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show, Unveiling Journeys. I am Tiffany Alexander, and if you don't know by now, I am obsessed with referrals, the power of networking, high-level masterminds, hiring a mentor, so many amazing things. And my guest today is someone that's very incredible. We met in a high-level mastermind group, and we've been doing this fun, share referral type thing, which you can be part of too.
Absolutely.
Anyway, he gets to share his story today. I love his story because it's fun. It's near and dear to the background I have of consulting and seminar world and speaking and whatnot, but that's not the whole thing. So with that, I'm going to introduce Andrew. Andrew, welcome. Tell everybody about you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I really appreciate it. A little bit about me, what I do, my secret sauce is the ability to help people to be able to tell their stories. A lot of times our brains operate like a blender with its lid off. I actually was searching that image recently, so it's in the back of my head now, and trying to get that into a cohesive keynote. And that's what I love doing. That's what my passion is right now. I love helping people be able to spread their voice, build their tribes, go out and do absolutely amazing things.
This is so cool. I've bumped into handfuls of people, which I've thrown your way. It's I think I want to speak. I want to do this. I'm like, oh my goodness, you need to know Andrew, because I don't know how to get your story onto paper, but he can. Just the elaborateness of it and the closing ability behind it, whatever you want to have as the outcome. And then all the connections that you have to make it all happen. But that's not where you started. Tell me how all of this began.
Okay, so let's set the Wayback Machine to over 20 years ago. And I've had more jobs than Liz Taylor's had husbands. I mean, I've been in a bunch of different careers, and I never quite knew where I was going to go and what I was going to end up as. So about almost 20 years ago this year, I ended up in what I was considering my future previous employer. I was never not supposed to be. I had just moved back to Buffalo, New York, my hometown. I had been living in Cleveland, Ohio up until that point. And I realized I needed a job. And the way that I used to pick jobs was I'm going to go into something that sounds kind of cool. Now, I'm kind of weird and nerdly, so call center work was the first thing that I thought of. And they happen to have some openings because call center work always has openings. So I go get the job. It was for a large bank at the time. This was pre-2008, so it was before things got really fun. And so I go there, do the job. I kind of like it. It's not bad. I'm digging it. Go through my training. I'm on the floor for a little bit. Probably 3 months or so, 2 or 3 months into it, there's a posting for a training position. Now, for me, I had been a TA in college. I loved training. I loved teaching. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do it. Probably wasn't tenured enough at the job to actually make it. And I was 2 days late with my application. And so I hit it in it anyway, just going, screw it. Let's see what happens. And I got it.
No way. Yeah.
And I loved this job. I was training for the banking mostly and also in the medical industry. And I loved that training, that being in front of people, accessing that information, being able to break it down into bite-sized chunks that mere mortals can understand. And so did that for a long time. And so that was the beginning part of kind of my career, was that just random circumstance technically shouldn't have worked out. And now it's turned into an over 20-year career.
That's incredible. Now, what does that mean? What were you able to help these people with and train up? Were you even qualified to train? Like you said, you weren't there yet in tenure.
I had besides just a will to do this, I had no real actual training, training. I had been a TA for 2 years in college. So that was about the most training I had ever had. And that was it. And so for me, there wasn't really any background. It was just something that I fell into. I was in the right place at the right time. Things just happened. The universe said, yep, this is where you need to be. And that's where I ended up. So there wasn't really anything. It was just a leap and it worked.
Yeah. But did you go to school for this? I mean,
not really. No.
Oh, funny. I love
my
that.
degrees. I have a business degree and I have an associate's in electrical engineering. I mean, no, not even close.
Excuse me. Are we twinsies in this? I'm in sales, real estate with a half, poster, half degree in aerospace engineering that was not my jam.
Yeah, no, I realized I came from a line of engineers. My dad was an engineer. My grandfather was an engineer. And I realized at that point, I am not an engineer. It was not what I liked. it was not what I fell in love with. And I'm still nerdly. I still do. It was a microcomputer architecture was my focus in my degree. And I still am in the tech industry, but it's not what I love doing. Talking. And most nerds hate talking. It's not something that they do very well. I once heard a meme recently that said that somebody was asking another person going, have you ever met somebody who you know was brilliant, but they couldn't communicate to save their life? And the second person goes, have you met an engineer?
Exactly. I think that's why I didn't meet 100% of that qualification to be an engineer. And they're like, you're out.
Yeah.
You can talk, you're bubbly, you're not in our club.
I had a friend of mine years ago that was teaching a communications course to engineers, and just hearing her stories about trying, there were a lot of revelations inside of this course. And she was in the media, she was a news anchor. And so she was a very good public speaker, but it was funny listening to her stories about, do these people, are they really this bad at communicating? They're brilliant, but she was able to do a lot of good though too. So it was, she was able to help them to be able to communicate their ideas, but that is something that just doesn't there. And I think for me, that's part of where this urge to teach people how to speak comes from, is I came from a group of people who were not the greatest communicators. They were very intelligent, knew what they were doing, but at least on my dad's side of the family, they could speak when they needed to. They were good, but helping people like engineers be able to move forward from that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And for my mom's side of the family, like my mom and her dad are both amazing speakers. And so I kind of came from that line and kind of merged the two halves. So the engineer side who had some trouble communicating, and the other side who were just really gifted, talented speakers, kind of merged the two of them together to create this.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. I love that.
Podcast.
Now, I feel like that's why we're like, I don't even know what you would call it, like soul sisters. That's the wrong word, by the way. But like, the story of you between man, I relate so much. Like the dad side, just so smart, engineer, I don't even know my dad's favorite color to this day. He's just not like articulate kind of a thing. We can go have fun together, but not real chit chatty. And then my mom's like the bubbly one, wearing bright red. Come talk to me. So even though she's a nurse, but oh my gosh, so tell me a little bit about whenever you get to work with your ideal, your favorite client, what is that process from it being the thing that you are so good at naturally, because that's kind of what you've invented to work for yourself? What does that translate to the people you're working with?
So the number one benefit is I do a done for you service. And so what it is we sit down, we have a chat like this. Actually, I started my own podcast because I had a client who called me out one day on one of our mapping sessions going, dude, this is a podcast. Why didn't you have one? And we chat. Because the story, oftentimes we get more information from a conversation than you will from somebody talking at you from stage. Mm-hmm. And the other part of it is I want this to be an experience that's somewhat enjoyable. I want this to be, we're just two friends chatting over beers and we're going to do it that way. I'm not from a stuffy standpoint. I don't want that to happen. So we sit down 2 or 3 sessions, we chat things through, and I take notes on what you're saying, and I go through and I will actually help you to craft that keynote from there. So that's really what the process looks like. It's really easy. I wanted it to be simple so that, we're entrepreneurs. We all understand what, I think there's a number of us who are trying for a 36-hour day. I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe Trump will fix that for us, but really, we want that. We need a little extra hours in our day. I want to be able to allow people to be able to speak on stage without having to go through hours and hours of racking your brain. Like you said earlier, it can be a very intimidating process to do because we don't know where to start. We may be able to talk about somebody else's ideas very well. We have a lot of difficulty speaking about ours. And so I want that ability to just sit down, have a chat, come up with and then we're going to go through with a keynote from there. So that's really what that process looks like. And it's a lot of fun. And my clients like it too, because they're like, dude, that was easy. That was not difficult. Right. That was a lot of fun to do. And that's really what I want to.
I love that. Speaking of being an entrepreneur, what are some of the challenges that you face that you've had to overcome?
Lord, there's a reason I have my haircut.
I'm getting some gray. You just can't see it yet.
My migrator from the top to the bottom. So the biggest challenge is especially first starting out is trying to figure out what to do. You have this weird transition, and I did this as well, where I came from a family who was had a lot of difficulty with mentality. They didn't understand what the weird black sheep entrepreneur kid who would push a button just to see what the hell happened sort of, thing. Scared to death of most of this because they didn't understand what it was. And a lot of my friends group didn't understand what it was when I first started off almost 10 years ago on my own. And there's this arc you have where you start thinking something's different, and then then you start doing something about it. Then you get to the messy middle. And in that transition, most of the people that you have and most of your peer group or most of the friends you have around you have no idea what you're doing. And so for me, that was a huge transition, was saying, okay, I've got these people over here. I'm growing. how do I find these other people that are going to help me in that transition and will actually understand what's going on and will understand kind of how I'm thinking. And when I finally saw this, it was the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I think has changed so many people's lives. And I read it and I felt like understood and judged at the same time. That was just,
It's a shoe and I'm wearing it.
yeah, I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna go forward. But for me, it was really interesting because it showed me that difference. And so, but that transition was difficult because I didn't have a standard. If you put a standard, like a goal in front of me and say, go do that, I will go do it. But if it's like, go hit the target, you don't define the target, or you don't have anyone around you who can help you to raise that standard, it's very difficult. That's why you're some of the 5 people you spend the most time around. It's just because they set the standard so high that, you almost have, especially as guys, we do this, we challenge, we're constantly up for a challenge. They challenge you to become better. So that right now, that's what my friends are, is I've got a number of friends who I go to just by being who they are, challenge me to be better, because that's that standard. And it makes so, but once you get to that point, before you get to that point, it's really difficult. So I think that's the biggest one. And the second biggest challenge I've reached is when you first start out, you are chief everything officer. You do it all. And the sheer volume of work that has to happen, even just to do social media content. Oh, and I'm doing bookkeeping. Oh, and I'm also trying to come up with processes so that I can mimic what I do so I can make my job easier. And I'm trying to find clients. And I'm trying to, just making all of this stuff work, even with assistance, is very difficult. And I think that's the other big challenge that I had was, how do you balance all of this? And how do you change from what was basically a 9-to-5 mindset to, I call it an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. mindset? The work-life balance is so different. And how do I transition that to understanding that I am going to be answering emails at 3 p.m. on a Sunday? It's going to happen. And how do I put down boundaries to say that that doesn't encroach on my personal life? And how do I get to that point where when do I need to hire people? I've got a good friend of mine, Paul, that says, don't hire a first employee until they are $250,000 to $500,000 per year per employee in revenue is what you should be doing. And before I heard that, it's like, how do I quantify employees? I hired a few people, 1099ers, and I was not ready. And it blew up terribly because I didn't know what that was. So I'd say those are the 2 big kind of gaps that I had when I first started.
Oh, man, that's awesome. What does it feel like when you get someone to that point? Like, what is it doing for them? Like, you've crafted their story and now you're helping them. Like, do you get them on stages too?
So yes, if I have a network of people who speak on stages, and if there's somebody who's like, hey, I need a couple speakers, I will absolutely throw them that way, because that's just kind of the world that we roll in. But I love watching people to be able to say, I wanted to speak on stage, to I am doing it. And that joy that comes from them being able to go out and share what they have to do. I've got an NFL player right now that I'm working with who's got this amazing story that involves a prison term that was not necessarily fair and a whole bunch of other things, and walking through his process of doing that. Another guy who had a major health crisis and had to walk through it, and being able to not only help my clients be able to tell that story arc and tell their stories, but also help the audience, because somebody's going to resonate with, these folks. They're going to resonate with something that they had to go through, and it's going to edify all of their lives. So I always like to say that whenever I'm doing one keynote, I'm not just helping one person, I'm helping whoever that person goes out and talks, and that could be millions of people. And to me, that's gratifying. I like seeing that process.
That's an interesting perspective. I love that you've seen just past, like, oh, I'm helping one guy. No, that guy's also helping whoever. Like, your systems, your message, and your process is really, it's almost unlimited, because it's exponential from everyone who you teach to every audience they get to go be in front of.
And that's my mark on the world, is I want to help people to be able to spread their word, to be able to spread their truth, and be able to spread it authentically in such a way that they can go out and help others and have a multiplication factor. Throughout growing up, I never was a person that felt like I needed to be heard. It was a huge issues with that sort of a thing. And so now I have the ability to not only correct that personally through a lot of inner work, but also to be able to help other people to be able to make sure that they are being heard and that we can hear their stories.
Oh my goodness, this is so cool. At this point, there's a few people that are like, why do I not know you yet? Well, it's because you hadn't, if you're watching me, maybe you found me. Maybe you already know Andrew and you're just watching his story unfold right here on the podcast. But tell everybody, where is your favorite way that you want them to reach out to you, so that way they can find you and you could be the next helper in their life?
So the best ways to get a hold of me, Instagram, at andrewchesnutt.com. It's spelled CHESNUTT. My ancestors were a bit sadistic and just spelled it slightly differently, so the T in the middle goes at the end. I also know exactly who is detail oriented in my life and who is not. It's a fast way to do it, but that's a good way to get a hold of me. You also could always email me, andrew@goncls.com. Also, you can email me there and I can get back to you as well.
I love that so much. What would you say is one of your favorite steps that you like to give to somebody? Like, oh man, I'm just getting started. Like, what kind of a baby step do you give someone first?
As far as in business or in speaking or yes.
I guess pick one avenue. Pick your favorite.
Okay.
Because I know I wear like 9 hats myself too. Like, which part?
Exactly. Right. Well, so if I were to give anyone advice, I would say trust in yourself more than you think you should. I think a lot of times people don't trust themselves. That's why they don't go for it. That's why they don't do what they want to do. That's why they don't get onto stages. It's scary. It's something that I can't do that. I'm not a good speaker. All of these excuses, and I've heard them all. Trust in yourself that you can do it. It sounds super simple, and it is a hell of a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah, because like you trust in yourself. What if you trust in the wrong part of yourself, or you're wrong in the first place?
Yeah. And that's one of the things entrepreneurship taught me is a trust in myself that is deeper than anything I would have had ever through any other experience. Because if you come into this entrepreneurship journey and you have any issues or anything that you're not willing to confront, you are now forced to confront them. And it's a really interesting process of kind of a trial by fire. You will become a much stronger person later on. And just trusting that process to move you forward is really something that is probably the most difficult lesson to learn as an entrepreneur. But once you've mastered that, there is not a single thing on this world that will stop you.
Oh man, that's so good. You have so much to share. I guess I want you to free ball it. Like free. I just said that. Oh my God, Tiffany Alexander. Tell me.
Isn't that what Tom Penn said? Isn't that the words? We're going to roll with it. It's all good.
Oh my dear. This is awesome. This is like, we're going to have a blooper reel on this one. This is going to be awesome. I think it's because my cat's trying to get in the door right now and I'm not letting him in. So I'm like, I'm not going to pause for this. I want to hear more about some of the processes that you had to go through. I know we talked a little bit about like beginning and the back and the stages of your journey. There's so much that we left out that I want you to crack into a little bit more with us because we have time. So I want you to tell me more about that.
Okay. So let me tell you the story about how I fell into my entrepreneurship journey. And it was one of those where I had to do the major trust fall of the universe and just say, I'm going to make this work. And it was 2013. I had just gotten off a major project for the company that I was working for, still in a 9-to-5. And I was laid off. And I sent 300 resumes out. Now, at this point, I already had about 10 years of experience in doing what I do, 300 interviews and not a single nibble. And I realized at that point, there's a shift coming. Something's not working right here. And I'd always wanted to be in business for myself. And that's when I decided to do that. So it was a few years later, finished up a college degree just to at least say that I have this done, to finish that cycle and be done with it. So it was about 2016, I went into business for myself and actually started the company. And it was one of those, it was the biggest trust fall on the face of the planet with the universe, because I had to now learn a completely new set of coping skills. Like we were talking about earlier, where there's this transition between 9-to-5 and everyone I knew was a 9-to-5er. And then getting to that point where seeing what that was like, what my new reality was. And I can remember within the first 6 months picking up a large client because I was just kind of hustling and would go out and do it. Got in a group that really helped me to be able to grow and to be able to kind of, a group of entrepreneurs, group of online learning professionals who was able to help me to grow. And I picked up a couple of subcontractors, picked up a major contract for a large university here in the States. And that's what started that process. But I'll tell you, that transition was a little difficult, not quite knowing what to do, especially the early years when I didn't know if there was another client coming. I wasn't used to that level of uncertainty. And so that's really where the first part of the company started. And I was still in the standard learning industry. I just now owned a job. So it was a little bit different, but I think that was the start to it. And then it was I was in business about 6 months. I think it was about 6 months, something like that. I met somebody who's become a very good friend. I still work from this day, Chris Noggle. I met him, and he was that one person in my life who showed me what this new reality was. Because since the age of 16, he had been starting businesses. And I needed that one person in my life to show me what this difference was, what it was like to be an entrepreneur and to set that standard differently. He doesn't even know this story, by the way. This is like the first time I've ever actually really told this story. So I'm going to make sure he hears about it. But it was that one person that showed me what that new version was like and what that new version of me was going to be.
Hmm.
And that was, I think, the transformative experience where it's like, no, I reject your reality and I substitute my own. The old reality that I had was not working for me. I was a terrible employee. I was really bad at it. And then going to that new reality of this is where I need to be. This is what I need to, I need to trust in myself to be able to do this. And that it's that transition happened. And that's also when I got into presentations and speaking. So at the time, he had a show on TV called Risky Builders that was airing on HGTV, and it was about to be picked up. We were piloting it, had really, really good ratings. I was going to help with his education arm of this, and Discovery bought HGTV and said no new shows. So years of experience, years of work on that show was done, and we had to pivot. As part of that pivot, he needed to do a presentation, like one thing, and helped him get that up and going on life insurance, of all things, life insurance. Helped him to get that going. We rehearsed it. We got him going. And that has now built it's now built a relatively large company for him. And he does very well with that one thing. And that was the moment when I realized this is what I want to do. So speaking and doing the presentations and things, that's what I had done as part of my job as a trainer. But it wasn't until that moment that I realized this is what I want to do. And I want to do it for entrepreneurs and I want to help them. And so, yeah, that was 2017.
A lot of this stuff seems like, oh my gosh, this just isn't that easy. You've got to try hard. Like you said, 8 to 10. But it's like, I woke up at 4 a.m. and I was like, I should send an email. I'm like, no, I shouldn't. You never stop whenever you work for yourself because you're always simmering on that next idea or visionary for the future of what that is. What would you say is some of this is for really the audience who does get a chance to get to know you. Why is this also important? You've mentioned it, but the thread behind why you try so hard for everybody else. Why is this so important to you?
Because for me, when I was growing up, I never had that ability to actually be able, for me, I never felt like I could talk. It was always one of those, I grew up with a lot of large personalities and I was the quiet person in the background who just watched. And it wasn't anything that I did intentionally. I was actually very extroverted, but just doing a lot of things. It looked like I was introverted. And I wanted to make sure that people had that ability to be able to speak. And so for me, it's kind of, now that I've found that voice for myself, now it's me helping others to find that voice as well. And that's mainly why I do what I do.
Oh my gosh, there's so much in this. I know that you've changed so many people's lives in this. And I know the people that I've been able to say oh my gosh, do you know Andrew? I always tell people, the show, How I Met Your Mother. Hey, do you know my friend Ted? Right? Hey, do you know my friend Andrew? It's like, have you met Ted?
Exactly.
Have you met Andrew? And it's just one click away. So everybody who's listening right now, if you don't know and you can't even be bothered to click the link below, friend me, connect with me on LinkedIn. And that way I'll say, have you met my friend Andrew? Because that's the best part is that some people, if you're even thinking gosh, I wonder if I should say hi. Yes, you should. We're just human and we're all just humans trying to help another human out. And if you've even thought to yourself, how would I craft? What would I do? How should I? Maybe. Yes, that's the universe speaking to you through this episode. So whatever part of this you're listening to, you have to reach out. You have to say hi and imagine the people that you're going to impact with your story, whatever that story looks like. And then not only that, the power of having somebody help you craft that. So that way you're even more impactful and potentially getting a couple of really good referrals to put you in front of the right people. I know for a fact that you said you also help people if they have this idea that they can create projects with you, or you can help them what is it? If they have an idea that they could put on video that you could help them with that too. What are some other things you've already done or what's in the horizon for you that you're working towards next also? Sorry, multiple questions.
That's okay. No, the next major thing that I want is I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. Hey, have you met Oliver? Oscar's not so good looking. It's really just a cheap, Chinese knockoff that I have. So the next step that I'm doing, getting the keynote speaking thing, but just as part and parcel of who I am, I also love teaching. I want to create courses that are Netflix binge worthy. If you can spend hours watching a Netflix show, you should be able to do the same with training and have it be that entertaining and engaging. So I am working on that on the side. That's my side hustle. I have a cinematographer and a screenwriter that I work with as far as the process is concerned for that. But so that's kind of the next step in this evolution. So it's mainly around speaking. I mean, that's really what I want people to do is to go out and speak. But speaking can open so many doors for you. And it really is the start of it's really the start of your career. This is the one thing to get your name out there to understand, so people can understand who you are. They can hear your story. They can connect with you. And now you've built a tribe around you. Now, what do you do with that tribe? Now, how do you progress? How do you help people even more as you teach them how to do something you've learned how to do? And so that's the second part of things. So yeah, right now the focus is mainly on the Keynote side of things, but that's the other thing that's coming up as well is this, helping with either coaching programs or online training or making it in something that is engaging rather than the standard kind of talking head videos that don't really get, that you'll get something out of them, but we can do better than that. Something that's kind of fun and engaging and Netflix show kind of binge worthy.
I love that so much. This has been amazing. I know we have to go in a little bit, but before we do that, I would love for you to leave. And I know you've given so much great advice, so many little nuggets, but what is your favorite piece of advice that you want to, I don't know, that someone asks you, like, what's your favorite quote? What's your favorite piece of advice? What's your favorite nugget? I have so many, so I have to decide when someone asks me, but let's end with that. Tell me your favorite one.
So I'd like to double dip on this one because there's two quotes that I absolutely love. One I'm going to do really well with, one I'm going to absolutely butcher, but we'll go from there. The first one is, and this is something that I had to tell myself and I still have to tell myself a lot. And that's a quote by Henry Ford that said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right.
Yes.
And under that mindset change really is a big thing. The second one, and I'm totally going to butcher this, it's one of my favorite, it's a very long quote, but it's actually a very long speech by Steve Jobs. And I think it was a commencement address at Stanford that he did. And he said something about, we are the ones who are crazy enough to change the world. And I think that's a specific thing that entrepreneurs are here to do. There's not many, one friend of mine has been an entrepreneur for 30 some odd years and says maybe 4% of people are actually cut out to be entrepreneurs. It's a very different path. It's a very difficult path. Mm-hmm. But we're the ones that are crazy enough to change the world. And I think that's something to realize that if you have this bug and you feel like you're ready to be an entrepreneur, you are. You're never actually ready. You just jump whenever it happens. You send out 300 resumes and, you hope for the best and you realize that the universe has something different for you. But understanding that, yeah, we're all a little crazy in a good way. And we're all there to make sure that this world is a better place because we were in it and we were able to change that.
I love that so much. That's amazing. It makes me almost liken it to, you read a couple of books about like, hey, you're going to be a parent soon, right? You get that. And then you pop out a child, which I have two. And I thought I read a book and I knew what that was going to be. There really is not an instruction manual for these things. And it's the same in entrepreneurship. There isn't an instruction manual for you in particular, but there are so many people that have been there, done that you can get enough of a framework from somebody who is an entrepreneur like you stepped into. And being able to see and guide you, like at least keep you on the rails type of a thing. Man, that's awesome. If you guys are still listening, I appreciate you for hanging out with us for this entire time. Right now you're going to friend me on LinkedIn and that way we can connect you to Andrew and all the other amazing guests that we've had. And if you want to be a guest, let me know. I've had some people reach out to me randomly like, oh my gosh, have I made it? People want to be on my show.
I put myself twice earlier today because I was so excited.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for your time. Thank you for coming and being on the show. I am so excited where it is you're going to go and that I get to keep in touch with you for it. And thank you, everybody, again for hanging out. Bye.